Desire does not come in daylight, it comes in shadow. You do not choose who ignites fire in your chest, whose presence unsettles your breath, whose eyes pierce straight through the mask you wear for the world. Sexual attraction is not rational. It is not logical. It does not follow your plans. It erupts from the unconscious, raw, ancient, irrational. And what Jung revealed is that within every spark of attraction lies a shadow. This is the brutal truth. When you are drawn to someone, you are not drawn to them alone. You are drawn to the parts of yourself you have buried, the qualities you repressed, the desires you denied, the wounds you left unhealed. Sexual attraction is not only about bodies colliding, it is about psyches colliding. It is not simply chemistry, it is projection. You see beauty, but what you are really seeing is your own unlived possibility. You see danger, but what you are really seeing is your own forbidden longing. You see mystery, but what you are really seeing is the shadow you refuse to integrate. That is why attraction is intoxicating. It is the unconscious announcing itself with a force so primal it feels divine. But this intoxication is dangerous, because what you do not recognize controls you. What you project possesses you. The shadow side of sexual attraction is that it can enslave you, pulling you into cycles of obsession, destructive entanglements, toxic dynamics. You think you are choosing love, but often you are being chosen by your own shadow. History is littered with its victims. Think of Antony and Cleopatra, a union that consumed empires. Think of Paris and Helen, their passion igniting the Trojan War. Think of Samson and Delilah, strength undone by desire. These are not simply stories of romance. They are archetypes, cautionary tales of what happens when sexual attraction is not understood, when its shadow is ignored. Jung warned us. The anima and animus, the inner feminine within man, the inner masculine within woman appear first in projections. We do not fall in love with people. We fall in love with our own inner images reflected back at us. We worship others as gods because they carry the qualities we cannot carry within. But every projection must collapse. The god becomes human, the angel becomes flawed, the dream becomes nightmare, and when that collapse comes, the shadow is revealed. This is why passion can turn to hatred, why desire can turn to disgust, why the one you once adored becomes the one you cannot stand. Because what you projected onto them was never theirs, it was yours. And once the projection breaks, you are left face to face with yourself. The shadow side of attraction is also the shadow of power. Sexual energy is not neutral. It is fire. It can warm, inspire, create, but it can also burn, consume, destroy. Entire industries, from advertising to politics, weaponize attraction because they know it bypasses reason. They know the unconscious can be manipulated through desire, and individuals do the same: seduction as control, allure as domination, beauty as currency. Nietzsche saw this clearly. Eros is not simply love, but will to power dressed in pleasure. Behind every act of seduction is also an act of conquest. And this is why attraction feels dangerous, because it is. It threatens your sovereignty. It makes you bend, kneel, surrender. It forces you into the ancient struggle between instinct and will. But here lies the path of awakening, to see the shadow in your desire, to recognize projection for what it is, to ask, why this person? Why now? What part of myself do they carry? What shadow are they showing me? Until you ask those questions, you are not free. You are possessed. Think of it. How many times have you been pulled towards someone who was not good for you, and yet you could not resist? That is not love. That is your shadow demanding recognition. The toxic partner, the forbidden affair, the dangerous attraction, these are not accidents. They are summons. The unconscious calling you to integrate what you have disowned. But integration requires discipline, to feel the fire without letting it consume you, to honor desire without becoming enslaved by it, to recognize that the beauty you see outside is also the beauty buried within. To reclaim what you projected, and in doing so, to free the other from your worship or your hatred. This is the highest form of attraction, when you no longer need the other to carry your shadow because you have embraced it yourself. Then desire becomes choice, not compulsion. Then sexuality becomes creation, not destruction. Then intimacy becomes wholeness, not projection. But most never reach this. Most stay blind. They chase attraction like moths chase flame, burning themselves again and again, never learning the fire was inside them all along. And so the shadow side of sexual attraction will keep ruling them. They will keep worshipping lovers as gods, keep hating them as demons, keep confusing compulsion for destiny, keep calling wounds soulmates. They will keep repeating the same cycle until they awaken. But if you awaken, if you dare to confront the shadow, everything changes. Attraction becomes a mirror, not a trap. Desire becomes fuel, not chains. The unconscious becomes ally, not enemy. And then you realize the deepest truth. Sexual attraction was never about the other. It was always about you, about the parts of your soul you long to reclaim, about the shadow you refuse to face, about the wholeness waiting to be born through fire. Desire is the path. The shadow is the test. Integration is the goal. And only when you pass through shadow does attraction transform into love. Sexual attraction has always been described as dangerous, and rightly so. Not because desire itself is evil, but because desire's raw power. It collapses boundaries. It bends wills. It rewrites destinies. Think of Troy, an entire city set ablaze because Paris could not resist Helen. Think of Cleopatra, whose allure bent Rome's greatest men into submission. Think of Antony, undone not by armies, but by the gravity of one woman's presence. These stories are not simply about beauty. They are about the shadow side of attraction, the unseen forces pulling beneath the surface, forces no reason can tame. Jung understood that sexuality is not merely biology, it is archetypal. It is the meeting point of eros and the unconscious, where instinct collides with projection. You think you are drawn to a person, but in truth, you are drawn to an image, a reflection of your own buried self. This is why the attraction feels magnetic, irresistible. It is not just chemistry, it is recognition. Recognition of something you exiled long ago, now standing before you in living flesh. That is why you cannot reason with desire. You cannot think your way out of attraction, because it does not live in the conscious mind, it lives in shadow. And the shadow will not be ignored. This is why forbidden love feels intoxicating. The affair, the secret, the dangerous connection, they all burn brighter, not because they are more real, but because they summon what you most repress. You are not simply desiring the person. You are desiring the parts of yourself that society, family, morality told you to bury. They embody your rebellion. They carry your unlived life. But here lies the danger. What you do not own owns you. What you do not integrate manipulates you. You mistake compulsion for love, obsession for destiny, lust for soul. You bow before the image you yourself projected, and you suffer when it collapses. Jung called this falling in love with the anima, or animus projection, worshipping another as godlike, because they carry your own unconscious. At first it feels divine. You are high, intoxicated, lifted out of yourself, but it cannot last. No human can bear the weight of godhood. And so the collapse comes. The god becomes flawed, the dream becomes nightmare, and the love that felt eternal becomes poison. This is why attraction flips so easily into hatred, why passion becomes resentment. Because when the projection shatters, you see not the other, but yourself, your shadow, your wounds, your denied desires. And most cannot bear that mirror. So they demonize the one they once worshipped. Yesterday's angel becomes today's devil. But the devil was never them. It was always you. The shadow side of sexual attraction also reveals itself in power. Desire is not neutral. It is currency. It is weapon. It is control. Leaders, advertisers, manipulators all know this. Why do empires plaster beauty on their propaganda? Why do companies drench products in sex? Why do rulers parade themselves with symbols of virility? Because sexual attraction bypasses reason. It reaches the unconscious faster than any argument. And once the unconscious is hooked, the will follows. Machiavelli wrote that it is safer for a ruler to be feared than loved. But the deepest rulers know it is best to be desired. Desire enslaves without chains. And so we must ask, when you feel attraction, who is ruling you? Is it your soul, your shadow, the other person, or the archetype that has possessed you? Because if you are unconscious, you are not sovereign. You are a servant to forces you do not understand. But this does not mean we must reject desire. To repress sexuality is to become brittle, to exile the very fire that fuels creation. The answer is not repression. The answer is integration. To see the shadow within your attraction, to ask, what do I see in them that I have lost in myself? What am I projecting that is mine to reclaim? This is the alchemy of Eros, to transform lust into insight, to turn projection into integration, to use attraction not as compulsion but as mirror. Nietzsche once wrote, "You have great chaos in you. Let it give birth to a dancing star." That chaos is sexual energy. Unintegrated, it destroys. Integrated, it creates. It becomes art, philosophy, empire, vision. It births more than children. It births culture. The shadow side of sexual attraction is that it tempts you to stay unconscious, to chase highs, to burn in obsession, to live a slave to the fire. But the higher side is that if you endure the fire without being consumed, you discover yourself. You reclaim your shadow. You become whole. And when you are whole, attraction no longer enslaves. You no longer worship others as gods. You no longer demonize them as devils. You see them as they are human, flawed, radiant. And in that seeing, intimacy becomes real for the first time. Not projection, not possession, not compulsion, but truth. This is the path Jung pointed to pass through the shadow of attraction until desire is no longer chains, but freedom. But freedom costs. It costs the illusions you once called love. It costs the obsessions you once mistook for destiny. It costs the intoxication of projecting godhood onto others. You lose the high, yes, but you gain sovereignty. And sovereignty is greater than intoxication, because sovereignty means you can desire without being destroyed. You can love without worship. You can be consumed by fire and still rise unburned. That is the shadow side of sexual attraction. It is both the fire that enslaves and the fire that liberates. The difference is whether you stay blind or whether you dare to see. Every attraction is an initiation. Every pull toward another is not just about them, it is about you. About the gods moving in your blood, about the archetypes demanding recognition. Sexual attraction is not personal. It is myth repeating itself through your body. Think of the lover archetype. He is intoxicated by beauty, undone by desire, hungry for union. The lover is not evil, but he is dangerous. For the lover longs to dissolve boundaries, to merge entirely with the other. And when you are possessed by him, you confuse merging with meaning. You forget yourself in another, and you call it love. But it is not love. It is annihilation disguised as intimacy. Think of the seducer archetype. Cleopatra in her barge, draped in gold, perfumed with power. She does not chase, she pulls. She does not demand, she enthralls. Seduction is not about beauty alone. It is about awakening hunger in the unconscious. It is about power disguised as desire. The seducer knows to be desired is to rule, and so seduction becomes both art and weapon. But what happens when you are seduced by the seducer? You mistake domination for devotion. You kneel, believing you are being worshipped when you are only being ruled. Think of the destroyer archetype, the siren who lures sailors to the rocks, the femme fatale who smiles while empires collapse, the man who conquers through charm, leaving ruins in every bed. The destroyer is not simply evil, she is the embodiment of shadow desire. She forces you to face what you repressed. She drags you into the abyss, and you follow willingly because part of you wants to be destroyed. That is the shadow, the death wish, hidden inside attraction. And then there is the muse archetype. She is the anima in her divine form, the inner feminine inspiring art, music, poetry. She awakens creation. She whispers visions. She births beauty in the soul of man. But the danger is the same: to confuse inspiration with possession, to worship her as goddess instead of reclaiming her within. Many artists have died broken because they worshipped the muse outside themselves and never integrated her within. These archetypes live in you. They animate your attractions. When you meet someone and feel magnetized, it is not simply them, it is the archetype they carry for you. They are the vessel, the mirror, the symbol of your unconscious. And until you recognize this, you are a puppet to forces older than civilization. This is why Jung insisted that the work of individuation, of becoming whole, requires confronting sexual attraction. Not to repress it, not to indulge it blindly, but to see it as initiation. To ask, what God am I worshipping through this person? What shadow is being revealed in this obsession? What part of myself is asking to return? Because the shadow side of attraction is not just about danger, it is about opportunity. Every obsession is a summons to grow. Every infatuation is a mirror of the unlived self. Every seduction is an invitation to integrate power you have denied. But most refuse. They prefer intoxication over integration. They prefer the high of worship over the hard work of wholeness. They prefer to burn again and again in the same fire rather than learn to carry the flame inside themselves. And so they remain enslaved by attraction. They repeat the same relationships, the same betrayals, the same wounds, calling it fate, calling it bad luck, calling it just the way it is. But it is not fate. It is the shadow repeating itself until you face it. History is proof. Think of Henry VIII, obsessed with Anne Boleyn, willing to break an empire, defy the church, spill blood all for desire. But was it love? Or was it projection? The shadow demanding recognition through obsession. And when the projection collapsed, when she no longer carried his anima, he destroyed her. This is the cycle of shadow attraction. Worship, obsession, collapse, destruction. But there is another way. The path of awakening, the path of integration. It begins with belief, belief that desire is not random, that it is meaningful, that it carries messages from the unconscious. Belief that every pull has a lesson, that every obsession has a mirror. Then clarity, the courage to see through the archetype, to say, this is not a goddess, this is a woman, this is not a savior, this is a man, this is not destiny, this is projection. To strip away illusion without stripping away beauty. Then vision, the vision of what your relationships could be if you were whole. Vision of intimacy, that is not possession, not projection, not compulsion, but choice. Vision of sexuality as creation, not destruction. Then purpose, the purpose of reclaiming the shadow, of integrating what you denied, of becoming whole so that attraction no longer rules you but serves you. Then discipline, the discipline to resist obsession, to step back when compulsion burns, to feel the fire without being consumed. Discipline to endure the hunger until the lesson emerges. Then action, action to reclaim what you projected. Action to embody the beauty, the strength, the chaos you once saw only in another. Action to become the muse, the lover, the destroyer, the creator within yourself. Then gratitude, gratitude even for the wounds, because every heartbreak was a mirror, every obsession a teacher, every seduction a revelation. Gratitude that the shadow did not enslave you forever, but guided you toward wholeness. Then adaptability, because attraction will return in many forms. And each time you must shift, adjust, learn. Each time the shadow will whisper in new disguises. And adaptability ensures you are never fooled twice. Then resilience, because love will break you, desire will test you, seduction will tempt you. But resilience means you rise again and again until nothing can enslave you. And finally, learning that the shadow side of sexual attraction is not curse, but initiation. That every pull, every hunger, every fire was the unconscious calling you home. When you understand this, everything changes. Attraction stops being chaos. It becomes compass. Desire stops being chains. It becomes fuel. Sexuality stops being possession. It becomes creation. And love, true love, finally becomes possible. Not projection, not worship, not destruction, but two whole souls meeting in truth. Because only when you integrate the shadow does attraction transform from fire that burns into fire that builds. Sexual attraction in its unconscious form is enslavement. It pulls you into cycles you cannot escape. You call it chemistry, you call it fate, but in truth it is possession. Archetypes wearing flesh, shadows demanding recognition, instincts masquerading as destiny. But what happens when you do not run from the shadow? When you do not repress it, and you do not let it consume you, but instead you confront it, hold it, integrate it. Then attraction becomes alchemy. This is the highest transformation. To turn obsession into awareness, lust into power, desire into creation. Think of fire. In its wild state, it devours forests, consumes homes, leaves ashes. That is attraction in shadow, chaotic, destructive, enslaving. But when fire is mastered, it becomes light, it becomes heat, it becomes forge, it creates civilization itself. So it is with desire. When it rules you, it destroys. When you rule it, it creates. This is why Jung insisted that individuation requires passing through the fire of sexuality. To deny it is to remain half alive, brittle, incomplete. To indulge it blindly is to burn again and again in the same cycles. But to integrate it, that is mastery, that is wholeness, that is sovereignty. And sovereignty means this: you can feel desire without kneeling to it. You can experience attraction without being consumed. You can love without losing yourself, and you can walk away without hatred. Imagine the power of this: to look at someone who once possessed you and to feel no chains, no hunger, no compulsion, only clarity. To see beauty without worship, danger without fear, allure without surrender. To recognize the archetype, but not be ruled by it. This is freedom. And in freedom, love transforms. No longer projection, no longer obsession, no longer possession, but choice, pure, sovereign choice. You choose to love, not because you need, but because you overflow. Not because you are incomplete, but because you are whole. Not because you project divinity onto another, but because you have already found divinity within. This is the true union, two whole beings meeting, not to complete one another, but to amplify one another. Attraction no longer enslaves them, it liberates them. Desire no longer burns them, it fuels them. The shadow no longer blinds them, it deepens them. And this is why the shadow side of sexual attraction is not an enemy. It is a teacher. It is a mirror. It is the unconscious pulling you toward integration. Every obsession, every heartbreak, every seduction, all of it was initiation. All of it was the soul demanding growth. History shows us both paths. The path of blindness, Antony undone, Paris destroying Troy, Samson betrayed. And the path of sovereignty, mystics transforming desire into union with the divine, creators channeling sexual fire into works that outlast centuries, Visionaries turning hunger into purpose. The choice is always the same. Will you remain enslaved by your shadow, or will you use it to become whole? Mindset is the battlefield. Believe that attraction is not random, that it is a message, a mirror, a key. Clarity is the weapon. See through the projection. Name the archetype. Recognize the shadow. Vision is the guide. Imagine the relationships, the creations, the life you could build when no desire enslaves you. Purpose is the fire. To reclaim yourself fully. To integrate every part of your soul. To turn chaos into creation. Discipline is the guard. To resist obsession. To stand firm in the fire until it refines you instead of consuming you. Action is the transformation. To reclaim what you projected, to embody the beauty, strength, and chaos you once saw only in others. Gratitude is the alchemy. To thank even the wounds, the betrayals, the obsessions, because they showed you the parts of yourself you had lost. Adaptability is survival. To shift as attraction shifts. To face new shadows as they appear. Resilience is strength. To endure heartbreak. To rise again, to keep walking the path of integration, no matter how many times desire tests you, and learning is eternity. To understand that the shadow side of sexual attraction was never curse, it was invitation. Invitation to face yourself, to integrate your unconscious, to become whole. So when you feel that fire again, do not run, do not worship, do not kneel. Look into it. See what it is showing you. Ask what shadow it carries, and then reclaim it. Because when you do, attraction no longer enslaves. It liberates. It deepens. It becomes not chains but wings, and you, sovereign, whole, unbroken, rise above the shadow. Not rejecting desire, not enslaved by desire, but carrying desire as crown. That is the final truth. The shadow side of sexual attraction is the path to your sovereignty. And sovereignty is love that cannot be broken. Desire is not your enemy. It is your mirror. Attraction is not random. It is revelation. What you call chemistry, what you call obsession, what you call fate, these are names for your own unconscious rising to the surface, demanding recognition. The shadow side of sexual attraction is not that it destroys you, but that it exposes you. It strips you of illusions. It unmasks your wounds. It drags into the light the parts of yourself you swore you had buried forever. And that is why it feels unbearable. Because it is not only them you are seeing, it is yourself. Carl Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is nowhere more true than in love, in desire, in sex. Until you confront the shadow in your attraction, you will keep repeating the same stories, the same wounds, the same betrayals. You will burn again and again, calling the fire destiny, when it was always shadow. But once you see, once you name projection for what it is, once you reclaim what you gave away, once you integrate what you denied, attraction transforms. The fire no longer consumes. It illuminates. The hunger no longer enslaves. It fuels. The shadow no longer blinds. It deepens. And then you discover the truth. Love is not possession. It is not worship. It is not compulsion. Love is freedom. Love is sovereignty. Love is two whole beings meeting without chains, without masks, without shadow, demanding recognition. This is the final gift of the shadow side of sexual attraction. To drag you through the fire until you emerge sovereign. To turn your compulsions into clarity. To transform your wounds into wisdom. To strip you of worship and leave you with truth. And the truth is this: you are not incomplete. You are not broken. You do not need another to make you whole. You only need to reclaim yourself from the shadows you projected. Do that, and you will never be enslaved by attraction again. You will desire without being destroyed. You will love without losing yourself. You will carry passion without fear. You will be whole. And when two whole souls meet, not as gods or demons, but as truth that is love that cannot be broken, not fire that burns, fire that builds, not shadow that blinds, shadow that deepens, not chains, wings. This is the shadow side of sexual attraction, and this is its gift, your sovereignty, your freedom, your wholeness, and in wholeness the only love that lasts.